I always thought the worst part of high school was exams. The late-night cramming, the awkward group projects, the endless hallways filled with gossip. But nothing could have prepared me for what really happened, the day my teacher walked into my personal life, uninvited. And suddenly, everything I thought I knew about love, safety, and trust, completely shattered. It started just like any other day. I was living in a small, quiet town, trying to rebuild after a painful breakup. I'd recently moved into my own place, not too fancy, just something small and peaceful where I could focus on myself for a while. After everything I'd been through, all I wanted was a fresh start. A place where no one knew my story, and where I could forget it myself. But little did I know, the past has a strange way of following you, especially when it's wearing a familiar face. Back then, I was dating someone older. It wasn't something I talked about much, especially not with friends or coworkers, because of how complicated it already was. He was charming, intelligent, and emotionally mature. Or so I believed. We'd met through a mutual friend, and things moved fast. Too fast. I told myself that maybe this was what healing looked like, diving into something new, someone who made me feel seen again. But deep down, there were always signs that something wasn't right. Late-night texts he'd hide, stories that didn't add up, and this vague feeling that I was only seeing one version of him. The one he wanted me to see. And then came the school year. I started a new teaching job at a private academy across town. The staff was welcoming, the students were bright, and the environment felt like a clean slate. I kept my personal life quiet, as always. But everything changed the day we had a surprise addition to the faculty, someone they said had transferred from another school last minute. I remember sitting in the teacher's lounge when he walked in. My heart dropped. It was him. The man I'd been dating. My boyfriend, now my coworker. But that wasn't even the worst part. You see, I wasn't the only one he had secrets with. Over the next few weeks, strange things started happening. Late meetings that didn't make sense, whispers in the hallway, and rumors that reached my ears before I was ready to hear them. I tried to tell myself I was just being paranoid. That maybe he was just as surprised to see me as I was to see him. But the way he looked at me, so calm, like nothing was wrong, it told me everything I needed to know. The truth was unraveling. And I was about to find out just how far the lies went. Because what came next didn't just shake my trust, it nearly cost me everything. And this? This was only the beginning. At first, I tried to act normal. I avoided him during staff meetings, kept conversations short, and pretended like nothing had ever happened between us. Maybe I thought if I ignored the problem long enough, it would just disappear. But deep down, I knew better. Every time I passed him in the hallway, I could feel the tension. He wasn't surprised to see me. In fact, it felt like he planned it. That's what scared me the most. I started noticing things, small, subtle signs that something was off. One day, I overheard him talking to another teacher, using the same phrases he used with me when we first met. The same compliments. The same charm. It was like he had a script, and I was just one of many he'd performed it on. It made my skin crawl. And then there were the emails. Anonymous messages started landing in my inbox. At first, they seemed random. A screenshot here, a vague sentence there. But it didn't take long for me to realize someone was trying to tell me something. Or maybe warn me. There were photos, grainy but clear enough, of him with someone else. A woman. Younger. At school. The timestamps made it worse, these weren't from before we met. They were recent. Around the same time he had told me he was busy with work and dealing with personal stuff. I tried to talk to a friend at work, someone I thought I could trust. I didn't give details, just asked if she had ever felt like something shady was happening behind the scenes. She looked uncomfortable and said, "Some people here were two faces. You'll learn." That was it. No names. No stories. Just a warning wrapped in silence. I started losing sleep. My anxiety was through the roof. Every staff meeting felt like walking on glass. I couldn't focus in class. I kept wondering if the students noticed anything, if they could sense that something wasn't right between us. And worst of all, he kept pretending. Like none of it mattered. Like I didn't matter. But one day, something changed. I came back to my classroom after lunch and found a note on my desk. No name, no explanation. Just one line, "You're not the only one. Be careful." And that's when I realized I was part of something much bigger than I thought. I stared at the note for a long time, my hands shaking. The words were simple, but the message was heavy. I wasn't the only one? What did that even mean? Was there another person like me? Another woman caught in this web of secrets? I didn't know who had left it, but now I couldn't stop thinking about who else knew, who else was involved, and how far it all went. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying everything in my mind, his lies, the messages, the sudden transfer to my school. None of it felt like a coincidence anymore. The next morning, I noticed something strange. One of my students, Lily, had been acting off. Usually outgoing and cheerful, she had become quiet lately. Always distracted, always tired. I didn't think much of it at first, teenagers have a lot going on. But now, I started wondering if she was somehow connected to all of this. During lunch, I found her sitting alone in the courtyard. I casually sat beside her, not pushing anything, just asking how she was doing. She gave a half smile and said, "It's just been weird lately. People aren't always who they pretend to be." Her eyes didn't meet mine, but the words hit hard. Was she talking about someone specific? Him? I didn't ask. I couldn't, not yet. But I made a mental note to keep an eye on her. Over the next few days, more strange things started happening. My classroom door, which I always locked, was left open one afternoon. My laptop had been moved. And someone had gone through the bottom drawer of my desk, where I kept old letters, notes, and things I didn't want others to see. Nothing was taken, but it felt like a message. Like someone was watching me. Testing how far they could go before I noticed. I couldn't tell anyone. If I reported it, what would I even say? That my ex, now a fellow teacher, might be involved in something shady? That students might be caught in it too? There was no proof. Just a trail of red flags. And still, every day, I had to walk into that school and pretend everything was fine. But I knew one thing for sure now, this wasn't just about a failed relationship. Something darker was going on behind those school walls. And I wasn't sure who I could trust anymore. By the end of that week, my nerves were hanging by a thread. Every hallway felt colder, every shadow sharper. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being followed, not in an obvious way, but in those quiet moments when you sense someone's eyes even if no one's there. He kept acting like nothing was wrong. Smiling in meetings, making jokes in front of the students, even asking me casual questions like we were just coworkers. But there was something behind his smile now. Like he knew I was catching on, and he didn't care. That Friday, I stayed late to grade papers. The school was quiet, most of the staff had already left. Around 6 p.m., I decided to call it a night. As I gathered my things, I noticed something new in my mailbox. A small flash drive. No label. No note. Just sitting there, like someone had dropped it off when no one was looking. I should have walked away. But curiosity and fear are a dangerous mix. I plugged it into my laptop right there in the classroom. At first, there were only a few folders. But once I clicked through, my heart started racing. Photos. Messages. Recordings. All of him, talking to other women, sometimes on school grounds, sometimes outside. A few of the names I recognized. Some were staff. One was a parent. And one was Lily. It felt like my stomach dropped. The images weren't explicit, but the context was enough. The way he spoke. The way they responded. He had a pattern. A strategy. And it was clear I wasn't just another accidental mistake in his life. I was one of many. And now, someone had gone out of their way to make sure I knew. Before I could even process what to do next, the lights in the hallway flickered. Then footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Getting closer. I quickly yanked out the flash drive and shut my laptop. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The door creaked open, and there he was. Leaning against the frame, like he owned the moment. "Working late again?" he asked, voice calm. I forced a smile, hiding the panic. "Just finishing up." But in that second, I knew, whatever was coming next, I wasn't ready for it. I stood there frozen, laptop half shut, my fingers gripping the edge of the desk so tight they started to ache. He didn't move. Just leaned there in the doorway like we were having some casual after-hours chat. But I saw it in his eyes, he knew. Somehow, he knew I had seen what was on that flash drive. His smile was too calm, too controlled. "I could use a hand setting up for Monday's parent night," he said smoothly, stepping just inside the room. "Didn't want to bother anyone, but you're still here," so my heart was racing, but I nodded. "Sure. Let me just finish up here." He gave me a look that lingered too long, then turned and walked away like it was nothing. I waited until his footsteps faded, then grabbed my bag and slipped the flash drive into my coat pocket. I didn't know who had left it for me, but now I needed to find out why. And fast. The next morning, I arrived early. I couldn't sleep anyway. I walked past the front office, expecting the usual silence, but was stopped by the sound of crying. Quiet, but clearly someone trying hard not to be heard. I peeked around the corner and saw Lily, curled up in the waiting area, her head down, shoulders shaking. I sat beside her slowly. "Hey, what's going on?" She didn't speak for a long moment. Then she whispered, "He told me not to say anything." Everything inside me twisted. "Lily, did something happen?" She just looked at me, eyes filled with fear and confusion. "He said no one would believe me. That he's respected. That I'd ruin everything if I told." I was speechless. The pieces were all clicking together now, but it was so much worse than I'd imagined. This wasn't just about cheating or broken trust anymore. This was bigger. And I had proof that might protect her, and who knows how many others. But how do you go up against someone like him when he's got charm, power, and a spotless reputation? Before I could respond, the office door opened. The secretary stepped in and froze when she saw us. Then her face changed, not surprised, not confused, more like she knew. And that's when it hit me. This went deeper than just one man. It wasn't just about him anymore. There were people protecting him. People covering for him. Maybe even helping him stay one step ahead. The late-night room changes, the missing emails, the unlocked drawers, they weren't just accidents. They were planned. I looked at Lily and promised, "You're not alone." But I had no idea how we were going to get out of this without losing everything. And worse, I still didn't know who I could trust. The weight of everything pressed down on me like I couldn't breathe. Lily's quiet confession and the stack of proof on that flash drive had pushed me to a breaking point. I knew I had to act. But how? This wasn't some simple drama between adults, it was a dangerous game with lives tangled in lies, and I was smack in the middle. I spent the next few days gathering every piece of evidence I could without raising suspicion. Secret messages, photos, recordings. I even managed to get a few whispers from other teachers, those who had seen odd behavior but stayed silent out of fear or loyalty. I realized this wasn't just about my ex, it was a network of deception inside the school walls. People turned blind eyes, covered for each other, afraid of what exposing the truth might cost them. The night I finally decided to go to the principal was the hardest. My hands shook as I placed the flash drive and printed copies on her desk. Her face was unreadable as she scrolled through the files. Then, just when I thought she might believe me, she looked up and said, "You're sure about this? It could ruin a lot of lives." I didn't hesitate. He's ruining lives every day by hiding the truth. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, "Be careful who you trust." I looked up just in time to see the door swing open. There stood my ex, calm, collected, but with a cold edge I'd never seen before. The principal's eyes darted between us, and I could feel the tension choking the room. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way," he said quietly. "But you don't know the whole story." "What story?" I demanded. He took a deep breath. "There are things happening here that you don't understand. Things I tried to protect. Not just myself, but others who would be hurt if it came out." I swallowed hard, but refused to back down. Protecting yourself by hurting others isn't protection. It's destruction. The room fell silent. Then, suddenly, the principal stood. "This will be investigated. No one is above the rules." Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. Later that evening, I received another message on my phone. This time a photo, a screenshot of a conversation between the principal and my ex, clearly planning to keep things quiet. I realized the fight wasn't just against one man, but a whole system built to protect secrets. Just when I thought I had the upper hand, the ground shifted beneath me. And I knew the real battle was only just beginning. After seeing that last message, I felt like everything I thought was solid was crumbling again. The people I had trusted most, the principal, the administration, they were part of the problem. But giving up wasn't an option. If I walked away now, all those voices, all those stories would be silenced forever. And I wasn't about to let that happen. I reached out to a local journalist who had a reputation for exposing hidden truths. Carefully, I shared what I knew, the flash drive, the messages, Lily's story, and the corruption I'd uncovered. It was risky, but sometimes the only way to break through a wall is to shine a light on it. Within days, the story started to unravel publicly. Parents demanded answers, other teachers came forward with their own experiences, and the school board was forced to open a full investigation. The man I once trusted, and the people protecting him, faced serious consequences. The network of silence began to crack. Lily started to smile again, slowly but surely. I watched her confidence grow, knowing she was no longer alone in her truth. And as for me, I learned something I hadn't expected. Sometimes, safety isn't about avoiding danger, but about standing up in spite of it. This experience changed me. It taught me that trust can be fragile, but courage can be stronger. That even when the people who should protect you fail, you have the power to protect yourself and others. It wasn't an easy journey, but it was necessary. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this story, it's that silence can be dangerous. Secrets can grow into shadows that consume everything around them. But speaking out, even when it's scary, can bring light where it's needed most. Thank you for listening to my story. If you or someone you know is facing something similar, remember you're not alone. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is to tell the truth. Stay strong, stay safe, and never stop fighting for what's right. 21.